how do you choose, I guess, the thresholds, or in terms of the data that you chose and the cities that you selected? Obviously, you had a starting point.
Yeah.
How many years did you go back? How did you come to that decision, I guess? And is it easy to modify if you needed to modify that going forward for other cities or for?
Yeah, it's not too difficult. We wanted to pull data from recent past so that this wasn't some anomaly of the past. It was something that's happened recently and could happen, this year. So we looked at 20 years worth of data and compared both the hottest day of record to the longest kind of extended heat wave or cold spell. It's fairly easy to modify, but it is a little manual at the moment. But I think this process, this way of evaluating passive survivability is gaining traction, and could be streamlined or compiled for kind of other people to use in a way.
Yeah, and the focus on the cities was definitely on the East Coast first, but also cities where there was a definitive winter and summer period. Interestingly, DC starts to add in then the humidity in the summertime. That becomes the big thermal comfort driver, along with the heat, but it's really the humidity there. So the idea was that we would have if we were just looking at, say, Phoenix, winter wouldn't really tell us much or be that useful. So we were looking for cities that really have both seasonal aspects. Other questions? Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about who the intended audience is for this? Is this more like an existing building tool or a new construction? And how do you expect people to use this? It seems like a really, really great tool.
Great, thank you. You want to answer?
Yeah, I think it's useful for both. I think it's mainly catered towards existing buildings and kind of maybe some of the sore thumbs of the city, these projects that we know are going to have an issue. And it's supposed to be a useful tool for those projects to assess different envelope upgrades. So it doesn't make more sense to add an inch of insulation or replace the glass. So this is set up mostly for those existing buildings. You can see the baseline assumptions are, go down to like single glaze, more of those typical kind of the older projects or older buildings of the city.
Or certainly the biggest piece of existing stock in the city, the large, tall, high-rise luxury towers in Midtown get a lot of the focus, certainly, and attention in the news. They're huge, they're big, they're well-funded. Meanwhile, the majority of residents, and certainly the biggest impact that that's going to have, is on this existing building stock as identified. So that was one of the reasons, too, we didn't choose a much higher window-wall ratio. We're really thinking that this is a tool for existing buildings and making those upgrade or retrofit decisions. Hopefully starting to pull it more towards having better envelope.